Hello students and welcome back to our Analyzing English video series. In this 20th video in our series, we're going to talk about moving beyond or move beyond the verb to go or go for creative ways to describe movement, specifically in English, as you all know. So we're going to talk about different ways in terms of English verbs where we describe movement, whether that's a person, an animal, and there's a number of different verbs. I'm going to cover 5 different verbs for you all to know to broaden your vocabulary. Instead of saying to go or to move, we're going to cover 5 different ones. And we have 2 of them right here. And we're going to talk about the definitions, but we're going to talk about somebody, a human being or person traipsing around, for example, in the woods or in the forest like we have here, or roaming through the savanna or grassland as you would see a lion do. So whether you're talking about a person, you're writing about a person, or you're writing or talking about a lion or another animal, there's different ways that I'm going to go over 5 different verbs to broaden our English vocabulary, to analyze the language, and to be creative with our English usage, whether that's for writing, for speaking, or when we're reading or listening. So my name is Ben with English from A to Z, and let's get started. So firstly, exploring movement, the adventurous way in English. That's basically what we're going to be talking about here in this video. Different ways we can use verbs effectively besides go or move. And like I said before, we're going to focus first on traipse, to traipse, or to roam, and to roam, excuse me. So let's begin with these adventurous verbs. We'll start with to traipse, which the definition in my view is to walk or move about casually or without, a specific purpose, more generally, often over a large area such as a forest or a jungle. And our example here is we traipsed, and notice I use past tense, so the verb is traipse, but past tense we add the D, just the D at the end. We traipsed through the old city streets, taking in every hidden alleyway and forgotten corridor. So this is a very descriptive kind of language here. Hidden, the alleyway you can't find. Corridor, you may have passed it, but it's forgotten. Nobody goes down there anymore. And again, I use the jungle and the forest as examples here, as this person is walking through or traipsing or roaming through, a forest or jungle. And these words, traipse or roam, can be used interchangeably. But they're not just for the forest or the jungle. You can use them, as I mentioned, for savanna or grasslands, or you can use them for urban areas like city streets. So that's the first one, is to traipse, as a kind of a way we can talk about adventure or talk about movement more broadly than to go or to move or to walk. To roam, as I mentioned before, is to move about freely over a wide area. Now we talk about animals, lions. People can roam, you can roam as well, but in this example, lions roam the savanna in search of their prey. So again, prey. Lions are predators, big animals, big appetites, so they will catch and stalk. Well, they'll stalk first, they'll search for their prey, and they can do so over a wide area. So lions roam freely because they're the predators around the savanna, often in Africa, not always, but in the African safari or savanna, that's where they'll roam in search of their prey. Now, they're not running, they're not walking, they're roaming, so kind of moving about freely, often without a set purpose. They're casually moving. Like traipse and roam are very similar in English. In terms of similarities, both often over a large area. Forests are big, jungles are massive, savannas are quite large. So when we talk about traipsing or roaming, it's basically over a wide or a large area freely and without a specific purpose. So those are our first two, to traipse and to roam. Next, meandering through life, slow and curious journeys. I like the title here, but we're going to go on to our next 2 verbs. To wander, which is to move, but without a fixed course, to drift, to move aimlessly, in other words. And our example here is we wandered for hours through the art museum, mesmerized by the paintings, portraits, and sculptures. So I like museums. I've been to museums around the world, and I still love going to museums. I've been to dozens, I think, at this point. You can wander through for hours. And when we say wander, like the example says, it's without a fixed destination or fixed course. Sometimes you go to this room, sometimes you go to that room. Sometimes you'll fixate on a certain painting that speaks to you. So you can wander for hours through a jungle too, or through a city, but it can also be through specific places like a museum, like a monument, like a particular exhibit, let's say. So there's a lot of ways we can use wander. But when you use wander, remember it's to move without a fixed course, to drift aimlessly. And sometimes when you're traveling, you're wandering, right? You're going through a new city, a new town, a new country, and you're moving without a fixed course. So I think this is a very useful verb, in particular when it comes to using English for movement. To meander, a little bit different. To follow a winding or indirect course to a destination. So this time, compared to wander, meander is like you're kind of getting there to a destination, but you're doing so gently without, and you don't know where that is, but you know you're going somewhere, like down the river or down the valley or down the lake, right? So you have kind of a destination in mind, but you don't know exactly where that destination will be. You just know you're going to a set point, but you don't know how long it'll take or when you'll get there. It's kind of like explorers. They would meander through the Nile River or the Rio da Dúvida in Brazil or the Mississippi River in the United States. So basically, when you think of meander, think about you're following a winding or indirect course, like a river or a stream or a valley, maybe even down a lake, even down in the seaboard of an ocean, right? But you're following an indirect winding, not exactly direct. You're not using a GPS to get to your destination. It's usually unknown. You just know you have a certain destination in mind. Our example here is the river meanders gently through the valley, reflecting the morning light when the sun comes out. And we have a good example here. Rivers will gleam when the sun comes out, and that usually helps get you through your destination. So you don't know, you're going down the river, you're going through the valley, you're going to somewhere, you're going to maybe a city or town. You don't know where it is exactly, like in the old days. This is kind of an older English word to meander, but you do know that you have a set direction in mind. You have an indirect course. It may not be the fastest way there, but you know you're heading in the right direction to a destination. So those are our next two, to wander or meander. And meander is kind of like indirect, where wander is more fixed course, but you're not doing so very speedily, right? So wander, meander, you know you're getting somewhere. It may be indirect. You may be wandering in terms of aim. You don't have an aim or set destination in mind, but you know you're getting there eventually. And lastly, we have our last one, which deserves its own slide because it's very popular, especially in songs. Rambling along, movement with stories to tell. Now, our last verb is to ramble. To wander aimlessly, often with talking or storytelling happening as you go along the way. And whether it's Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, even popular music like Led Zeppelin or the Beatles, there's going to be rambling, right? You're going to be kind of just talking off the cuff, not having a set end time. So rambling when you're hiking or when you're wandering or when you're walking or running, you're rambling, you're not just speaking, right? People can ramble, like in this example, Grandpa rambled about his adventures in Europe for hours. Why just listen to him as we hiked our way home? So this happens when you're hiking, when you're on a boat. People will verbally ramble, but there's also other kind of synonym here for to go. To ramble is to wander aimlessly, right? So you may have a specific course in mind, but you're not in a rush. So wandering aimlessly or going aimlessly through a forest, a jungle, maybe cliffs or flatlands, etc. But you're wandering aimlessly, and you're doing so while you're talking or storytelling is happening between two or more people along the way. So you're wandering together, but you're often talking. You're rambling. And you're not just verbally rambling. You're kind of rambling through to your destination. So there's two ways you could use it. You could ramble, talk endlessly without a specific ending at points, or you can wander aimlessly while the talking or storytelling is happening. So movement, rambling along, you'll hear that. Got to ramble on. There's a good Led Zeppelin song I love called Ramble On, kind of like wandering aimlessly through the world, but while you're talking or storytelling as you're doing it. So that's a good verb to use. An extra tip for English students like you at home or ESL students is, again, these verbs often give writing more color, more flavor, more personality than simply saying to walk or to go. So if you want to get from that beginner to intermediate or advanced level, try to use these verbs. Again, we have ramble, to wander, or to meander, to traipse, to roam. So we got 5 examples. I'm sure I'll come up with others in future videos. But these verbs that I mentioned today, write them down, make sentences with them. It will really help you kind of memorize them. They'll give your writing more flavor, more color, more zip to it, more personality than simply saying or writing, I should say, to walk or to go. So whether you're using the words verbally or in a written form, make sure you mix it up. I think that's a sign of a really good English writer, especially when you're learning it as a second language. You know, even if it's your first language, you can still learn to use more creative language. And I still try to do that myself in my writing. So again, we have to ramble, to wander, to meander, to traipse, to roam. Okay, and they have different meanings, they overlap, but they all have their different meanings. So make sure you write your own examples at home, follow the ones, and make sure you play and replay this video to memorize or just get a sense of the vocabulary, and then write some sentences, put it into action. Say some sentences out loud with ramble or meander or traipse, and put this video to good use. I hope you will. So thank you so much for watching. I really enjoy doing these Analyzing English videos. If you enjoyed this video or other videos in this Analyzing English series, please like this video. I do appreciate your support. And please subscribe to our English from A to Z YouTube channel. Feel free to sign up for our official English from A to Z newsletter on our website at www.englishfromatoz.com/newsletter. Thanks again, students, for watching, and make sure to keep expanding upon your English vocabulary so we can continue to improve your English language proficiency. I really hope you'll take this lesson to heart. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.